Welcome, welcome, welcome to Breaking Barriers. This episode is going to be phenomenal because it's one of the topics that I really like to discuss is communication. How do we communicate? Giving the world that we live in from a virtual standpoint, which has really transitioned in the last 3 years, how do we effectively communicate? How do we effectively communicate with our personal life as well as our professional life? I am about to bring up a phenomenal woman, Coach Alicia. She's an expert of this particular niche that we're going to talk today in breaking barriers. Now, I welcome to the platform the phenomenal, angelic Coach Alicia. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Chastity. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you as well. So, I am going to let you know a little bit something about this awesome person. And I was very impressed when I was reading her book. Here's her book. I'm going to
Yay!
promote it. Basically, communicating through change, lessons learned from real life. And when I was reading it about the author, the first thing came out on the first sentence, she was a lawyer. And if anybody knows anything about being an attorney, they talk, they have to communicate. And she specialized in family law. Family law can be very intense because you're dealing with different personalities, different upbringings, and if children are involved, that can take it to a whole nother level of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what also impressed me that she basically moved to south of France, which is a beautiful, beautiful country. And she began working on the radio, communication, right? And she in event management. One thing I wanted to ask, what made you get into event management?
Oh, I think because it's about helping people get organized and also to really manage talent as well, which I love. I think the event management was because of my organizational skills and also to be helping people in that way. So it was a nice step out of the law without being illegal and unlawful, and it took me into a direction where I was beginning to help people in a different way, but also at the same time using my organizational skills. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I still enjoy it when I do some work in talent management and event management too.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to talk about addressing communication and the change in that it has. And in your book, you have several chapters that discuss basically communication. How do you address that? One chapter that I want to talk about is relationships, that I
Yeah.
thought was very interesting, health and wellness, and as well as abuse. So I'm going to give you the mic and let's start talking about the chapter dealing with relationships. Where did that come from, and where were you trying to get your target audience to understand about communication within relationships?
Well, the thing for me, and I'm just looking at my book now as I speak. For me, in relationships, it's about being true to yourself, and actually that goes across the board when it comes to any aspect of your life. It's about being true to you. And for me, the personal experience was that I got married to a man because it was the conventional thing to do and it was the right thing to do, in inverted commas. But it actually was a falsehood for me because I was suppressing my natural self, which is that I am gay. And so it was very much to do with being true to yourself and actually realizing who you are
Right.
and what it takes for you to be fulfilled and to be happy and contented and to be able to live your best life. And really, like I said before, that's all about every aspect of your life. You know, before you can actually be successful, you have to be able to know what is it that makes you happy, what
Right.
fulfills you, what brings contentment to you. And then you have to be true to yourself. So, in my personal relationship, at that time, it was a case of being honest and going through the pain as well of that honesty, because obviously it affected not only my husband at the time, but also my parents, who had certain goals, I guess, for me, or what they wanted for my life. Although bottom line is that they wanted me to be happy. So I was able to actually communicate what was my truth, and then build on that and be able to then rebuild my life, but actually on the basis that was honest for me. And it was the best thing that ever happened, actually.
What I like about chapter one, relationships, is really the first quote that you say. What I have learned is that you cannot live in falsehood.
Yes, yes,
And everybody's falsehood is different,
absolutely.
because their perspectives and perceptions are different. I basically try to tell my audience, you have to find your happiness, because a lot of people don't talk about happiness. We talk about being successful, and don't get me wrong, one part of my platform is to be successful, and as well as to be mindful, but we never talk about the first element of being happy. Either happiness is in the middle or at the end, but it's never first. And in order for you to not live a falsehood, you have to learn how to be happy with who you see in the mirror. Not saying that you won't have flaws, not saying that things won't be challenging in your life, but are you happy with those decisions that you're making in your life? And can you look yourself in the mirror and say, I am Chastity Sonier, and I love who I see despite the adversities in my life?
Yes, yes, I think you're absolutely right, Chastity, because the thing is that I feel that in order to be happy, you've got to know what makes you happy, and you've got to know who you are and what your truth is, what is honest for you. And then when you know what that is, actually living your life then in that way, according to your truth, your honesty, and your authenticity. You know, when I teach the communication skills in terms of, you know, how to present yourself, it's very important that I say to my students, you know, you have to be authentic, because people will see through it if you're
Mhm.
not actually being yourself. And so, in every aspect of your life, you have to be true to you. And then you build your boundaries as well. You can't establish those boundaries if you don't know who you are and if you don't know what you want out of life. So, be true to yourself, be authentic, and then live your life in accordance with your truth and your authenticity. And then happiness, I believe, will follow.
I totally agree with that. You said something that is very crucial with being happy, is setting boundaries. And what I am learning as I develop into the young lady that I want to be, because it's an ongoing
Sure.
development. Sometimes people would take boundaries as you are mad at them, or you have a issue or a grudge. And boundaries does not mean that, like for me in my life. And it means that I recognize a situation or I recognize a trigger, And I don't want to go in that direction because this is where I'm going for my happiness. And if I go to that, go to, if I go towards that direction, it's going to trigger unhappiness. So I choose, because I am only accountable for myself and my actions, to set those boundaries and not go into that negative space, because I want to be happy in my end results. And sometimes it does not mean that you have issues or you have grudges or you have um, a problem or a dislike. It's just that person or that thing or situation is not the direction where Chastity Sonier needs to be happy. I love you, but you're not in that equation, and it's okay. It doesn't mean if that person or a situation comes that you wouldn't help or aid, but understanding boundaries and being okay with those boundaries when they're pressed against back at you or pushed in your face, and learning how to articulate in a very nice way that I love you, but we are on two different pages, and it's okay.
Yeah, I do think that, if somebody doesn't understand or respect your boundaries, that's their problem or their issue. So it's very important that you do express yourself clearly. It doesn't have to be in an aggressive way or
Right.
in a way that is very negative. It's just simply expressing how you feel. And I do think that it's very important that you do that. And if the person receiving that message doesn't receive it in the way that you are communicating it, then that's down to them.
Right.
It's up to them to then be able to articulate how they feel and express themselves. But you mentioned about the chapter about abuse too, and in there, I very clearly state that if you have been the subject of abuse, it isn't your, you are not the problem. The abuser is the problem. It's
Right.
their issue. And you should not take on board that you are the problem, they are the problem. And it's the same when you stipulate your boundaries. If somebody does not respect that, that's their problem and their issue. If you are being true to yourself and expressing yourself clearly and saying it how it is, non aggressively, you're not producing conflict, you're simply saying how it is for you, then somebody should respect that. Even if they don't necessarily understand it,
Or
they should
agree.
respect you. Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes.
Well, you jump to the abuse chapter, which is chapter 6, and I'm going to go that way. I love that. I love your quotes. I'm a quote person, and I love that you take ownership and you say, "What I have learned." And I think that that brings me into like, okay, what has she learned? And how can I relate to what she's learned and apply it to my life? And you say, what I have learned is that buried emotions will manifest and rise to the surface. The key is not to bury them back down, but confront them to understand them at a deeper level. Doing so leads to healing and freedom of the spirit. I truly believe in that statement. And part of my platform is talking about being able to live in your emotions. Your emotions are rightfully your emotions.
Yeah.
If it's emotion of fear, hatred, anger, love, joy, whatever that is your emotion, and you are allowed to feel that. But if it is a negative emotion, you should not bury it, because, like you're saying, it will manifest. And then when you're relating to people or communicating with people, you might not even know, because you've basically buried that negative emotion within yourself, that you're coming across angry or you're coming across hurt. So let's talk about that. And abuse is in different forms. Abuse is just not physical. You have mental abuse, you have verbal abuse, you have physical abuse, you have financial abuse. There's so many levels of abuse. So how do we help people that are dealing with emotions communicate that effectively in their personal and professional lifestyle?
Well, again, I think that it is so important that we do face the emotions, that we don't bury them. That it's all about being able to express yourself, and to do that you're actually letting it out rather than keeping it in. Because if you keep it in, it's going to cause all other illnesses, and it's going to affect you, and it will affect the people that you love as well, because it's going to come out somewhere, and it will either come out that you're going to be ill, or you're going to affect your other relationships. So I think that you have to face it. You have to accept and acknowledge that there is something going on with you. And if you accept that and you acknowledge it, you'll then be able to move on from it. And by doing that, recognizing that there's something going on for you, and then you can express it to the people that you love, people that you trust, or that you can have counseling and therapy as well. It's about self-compassion. It's about being able to take care of yourself, treating yourself, respecting yourself. If you've been abused, you lose your self-respect, you lose your self-esteem, and nobody should take that away from you. Nobody should have that power. You have the power to keep yourself confident, to keep yourself strong, and to take care of yourself. And nobody has the right to take that away from you. So self-compassion, self-care, doing everything that you can to heal yourself. Whether that is meditation, whether that is talking to other people who have been through the same, whether it is by doing physical exercise or just walking in the fresh air, whatever it takes for you to take care of yourself and rebuild your self-esteem and your self-esteem. Sorry. I was looking at my book at the same time. Nobody has the right to take that away from you. So, I often say that if somebody throws a ball at you, you don't have to catch it. And I think that that's a good way of thinking, that if somebody is going to try to put you down, or if somebody is not respecting your boundaries,
Right.
if somebody is not listening to you, you don't have to accept that they are doing what they are doing. You don't have to catch that ball that they're throwing at you. So think of yourself, do whatever you need to do to take care of you and rebuild your self-esteem, because you are the most important person in the world. You cannot move forward until you accept and love yourself. I know it sounds trite, but it is true.
It is very true. And on that note, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to come back and talk about health and wellness next, and on the next part of this.
Thank you.
Welcome back. So now we're going to talk about health and wellness and how to effectively communicate that in our lives. Again, I like how you start each chapter out with something that you have learned, and I'm going to read this as well. What I have learned is that we need all aspects of life in moderation, not excess, pace to give us power. Let's talk about that power and the power that's, I believe, some people, and because my show really targets women, sometimes we don't realize the power that we possess within.
That's very true, actually. Yes. And I think that as women, what we tend to do as well is to not so much suppress it, but we might actually put it to one side because we're so busy thinking about everyone else in our lives and not ourselves. And it's interesting because it does actually bring us back to what we were talking about in the first segment of the show, which was about being authentic and being true to yourself. And it all ties in because in order to be well and in order to be powerful and strong, you have to be able to, yes, be true to yourself. It comes back to that, but it also comes back to pacing yourself so that you can be true to you. So in the chapter to do with health and well-being, I mention about when I teach communication skills, I get my students to focus on the 4 P's of public speaking, and they are pitch, pace, pause, and power. But for the purposes of this chapter, I focus on pace and power. And what I say is that you have to pace yourself. So, as women, we spend a lot of time, we're running around like crazy things. We're doing everything for other people. But I ask in that chapter, are you actually living your life in accordance with your values? Are you actually managing your time around your most important things?
Right.
And I ask the reader to think about, if it's your funeral and you've got your friends, you've got your family, you've got maybe a school teacher, maybe you've got a coach, maybe you've got somebody from your church or your synagogue, whatever, and they are going to speak at your funeral. And what are they going to say about you? Are they going to say, yeah, this person never had any time for me? Yeah, this person was just concerned about money. Yeah, this person was, they were okay, but, they could be a bit short. They weren't really very kind.
Right.
Is that the kind of things that you want people to be saying about you? And if you think about what people would be saying about you at your funeral, it would demonstrate how you have lived your life. And do you want to live your life living it that people are going to say, yeah, she was just concerned about money.
Right.
Yeah, she didn't care. Yeah, she didn't really think much of herself. Yes, she was running around like a blue-ass fly and never achieved anything. Think about what it is that people are going to say about you, and then think, okay, what are my values? How do I really want to live my life? How do I want to pace my life in accordance with my values and goals? And then you live your life in accordance with them. So that then when you set your boundaries, when you're saying no, what you are actually saying is yes to your most important things. And if you say yes to those, you are then being true to yourself, living authentically, and living in accordance with your values. And that way, you will gain respect, you will gain your power as well, because you will truly be powerful because you are truly being you. So
I totally agree with that.
think about exactly what are your goals, what are your values, what is it that you really want to achieve during your life, and live your life in accordance with those values. And remember, when you say no to somebody, you are saying yes to your important things. People will respect you for that. And not only will you have respect, you will have self respect. And that is incredibly empowering.
Self respect. You're right. That lies so much power within itself. And
Yep.
you did talk about two concepts in this chapter, pace and power. And
Yep.
one thing I did like was step number two, that sometimes women, we go 150 miles per hour, depends on what's in our life, what's demanding and what's pulling us. And we forget to breathe.
Yes.
One thing, excuse me,
Mm.
that I like about my Apple Watch, it tells me throughout the day at a certain point, it's time to breathe. It's time to take a breath. 1 minute. And I really use that now when I see it. And I breathe. I stop and I'm being still. I'm not thinking. And what things you say here? Stop talking, stop moving, and ask yourself certain questions. And that's what I do when I get that alert is I'm stopping all movement. I'm focusing on centering my energy within myself. And I am just breathing and living in the moment. And one thing I do talk about in on my platform is being mindful. And when you're being mindful, people think other, which is true. But you also have to be mindful of yourself, which goes back to self-respect, power, as well as loving thy own self and knowing yourself. And that is truly, truly, truly important if you want to be the woman that you need to be in your life, your destiny, in your heart, as well as being an effective communicator. You have to know yourself and you have to know what you like and what you don't like. And that power lies within you. And a person that I really admire, she was one of the first ladies of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt. And it goes back and ties to everything we were saying because she was just such an impeccable woman. He basically said, nobody makes you feel inferior without your consent.
Yes.
Give that power. And I remember
Yes.
reading that probably in the 10th grade, and that resonated with me so much. Now, I didn't fully understand it being 16, 15, 16 years old, but something about those words resonated and it lived within me and it still does. I give you the power to make me feel the way I want to feel, regardless, relationships, in my life. I give you that power. And if I give that power away, that's nobody's fault but my own.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I completely agree, and I love that you have spoken about that quote. I love quotes too, Chastity. I really do, and that's one actually that I have on my desk, and I have it on a little sticky notepad, and I look at that because I think that it is so accurate, so relevant, and so pertinent, because yeah, nobody, going back to what we were saying actually in the first half of the show, nobody has the power to take away your power. And so if you know that, you can then always be in your confidence and in your power and self respecting with your self-esteem too. And so I think that it's a great quote. And it's very, very important too, yes, as you say, to be mindful, to be focused, and to take those moments to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel any anxiety or you feel any stress and you feel any pressure, take that moment just to breathe. When you're speaking in public, or you're speaking on Zoom, or online, and you feel anxious and you feel stressed, which people do,
Right.
it's one of the biggest stresses, actually, speaking in public. If you breathe and you breathe through it and you take your time, you can do anything.
I
And
agree.
you can take your time. Any communication, any conversation that you have, it is your conversation. It is your communication. You are in control and in command. I don't know what you're going to say, so I don't know if you've made a mistake. And any conversation, any communication is yours because you know what you're going to say. I don't. So you are always in control and in command. Take your time, breathe, and then speak or listen.
That is true. Well, we're at the end of this segment. So, what I like to do at each segment, at the end of each segment, is give my speaker, my guests, a time to give my audience a gem that
Oh
they
my
can take
goodness.
away,
Oh,
like food for thought. And then also, I give the platform for them to get to know a little bit about you and what you're doing, what your new endeavors are, how they can get in touch with you.
okay. So, well, I am Alicia Sedgwick. I am a communication coach, and yes, I'm the author of Communicating Through Change, and that book you can get on Amazon all over the world, and it's in paperback, Kindle version, and Audible. I actually recorded the audio version so you can listen to me if you don't want to read it. And I do a lot of training and coaching in communication, helping people to express themselves and to find their voices and to be able to speak up. A lot of my work has been with associations for beneficiaries who have been through trauma, and helping them to find their voices and to regain their power and their self-esteem. And for me, it's all about communication, because if you can do that effectively, you are going to be successful in your life, and you will also be happier in your life too. So I think that if I was going to leave the audience with food for thought, what I'd like to say is that you are always in control and in command of not only your life, but your communication, because it's your conversation, it is your communication, and you are always in control of that. And if you feel that you cannot express yourself and you can't do that clearly, then you need to come and see me. And you can go to my website, which is www.aliciasedgwick.com, and you can find me there. And there's also lots of things on that website, lots of blogs to help you to be able to communicate, and to communicate effectively with power.
Awesome, Coach Alicia Sedgwick. I have enjoyed this conversation. I normally leave with a gem too, and I give it from my heart, but I really, truly, you don't understand. I've highlighted in this book, I have like little flip pages of, you know.
Oh, I love you.
So, also, what I love about this book, and I didn't want to get in detail on it because we only had a short period of time. I love affirmations. Affirmations allow me to empower myself. I am this, I am that. And I love that you do affirmations on at each end of each chapter. And one affirmation that I want to give to the audience as a nugget, as a gem, is I create a totally new me in a different environment, shedding old habits and patterns of behavior. I experience wonderful new adventures and embrace the change. I learn the language and culture, and I never made comparisons with my previous location. That is in chapter 10 called relocation. And that resonated with me of being able to deal with change, accepting change, embracing change. And when you do that, you develop who you are. And it doesn't mean that you enhance or you become whatever that change is. That's just another way of you saying, I have some experience behind my belt. And I thought that was very lovely. But I want to tell you, I appreciate you coming on here, giving us some knowledge, speaking your truth. And I look forward to doing more things with you in the future.
Oh, I look forward to that too. Thank you so much. And thank you for reading the book and for taking it on board in the way that I really love that you have, and how I want all my readers to do so as well, so that they too can embrace change, that they can recognize things in their own lives and be able to deal with them and communicate through them. So thank you, Chastity. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. And oh, we have people watching, and I'll just tell you some things. They said excellent session, they enjoyed it, and good communication. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
that's
So,
lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
so
Thank you. Thank you.
two thumbs up. So again, thank you, and you have a good evening.
Thank you.
I truly had a wonderful time talking to Coach Alicia. She is phenomenal, and I have been following her. She doesn't know, well, she does know now. She is one of the persons that I follow and I listen to concerning communication, because communication is very, very important in our life, in our lifestyles, and where we're going with technology booming, etc. So learning how to communicate and improving your communication skills. Even if you are an excellent communicator, note that you can always improve in your communication skills and allow yourself to grow. And when you do, you become powerful and you become basically magnificent in your niche, in your trade. Until next time, I thank you for spending your lunch, your last 30, 40 minutes with Master Life Coach Chastity Sonier. If you need anything from me, you know where to reach me on any one of my social media platforms or my website, www.chastitysonier.com. You can connect with me on Facebook or on Instagram. If you want to contact me via email, please contact me at info@chastitysonier.com. Remember, be mindful, be successful, and be happy. But make sure that you do everything in your life intentionally and be who you need to be in your life. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.